Hey Kev, let's follow this trail over here. This looks like there might be something waiting down there.
All right. Hey, wait a minute. Do you hear that?
Yeah, I thought it was just me. What the heck is that?
I don't know what that is. Whoa, do you smell that too?
That's unbelievable. Hey, look.
What the?
Hey, look, those branches are moving over there.
What the heck is that?
Holy cow, is that what I think it is? Look at that thing.
Oh my God.
It's a freaking Sasquatch. Welcome to the Bigfoot Terror in the Woods Sightings and Encounters podcast. I am your host, W.J. Sheehan, author of the series of books, Bigfoot Terror in the Woods Sightings and Encounters, 12 volumes. Count them, mi amigos. 12 volumes in paperback, ebook, and audiobook, available at Amazon, iTunes, and Audible as well. Go out and buy a couple of copies. And before I bring my brother in tonight, a little explanation. Thanks that some of the listeners sent me a couple of heads ups that they had just purchased the new Audible book, and chapter 1, the country squire encounter, was cut off before it ended. First chapter.
Whoa.
Yeah, right out of the gate, Kev.
Did Bigfoot get their hands on
I
it?
guess it. Yeah, he cut him off while he was recording his message for me.
Wow.
But anyways, I called ACX, which is Audible, and they reviewed it while I was on the phone, and then they played for me the area where it was cut off so I could hear it. And then, of course, I got in touch with Bill, my sound engineer, and tonight he edited it out, put it back, and we don't know what happened because it was approved they call it approved for sale. They review it, and tonight they must have had a side note that this author is editing his file, and that I had spoken to somebody because the review happened very quickly, and I just got the approval for sale, as they call it. Now,
so what happens if you bought the book already, Bill?
Right. So I'm saying if you go back to them and tell them that you purchased a copy of Volume 12, Bigfoot Terror in the Woods, and that the first chapter was cut off, they will know. They're going to know that really happened and do some type of exchange with you.
And if they don't understand, say,
Yeah. Tell them, how about I help you to understand, comrade?
how about I just come inside and borrow your phone?
Yeah.
You know, I can see you right now while we're talking. I like that Ring camera doorbell you have. I didn't know that you worked from home.
Yes, I do work from home.
Oh, as a matter of fact, I'm outside already.
Why don't you come in, you little runt, and I'll blow you to kingdom come.
I was just calling on the ACS employee to get a new download.
Yeah. So that's the deal. I mean, they stand by their stuff, you know, and they're not. I was kind of surprised at the review process because I would think they would have caught that.
You mean their internal review process?
Yeah, because you don't just upload the files and wham, it's for sale.
Yeah, but I don't think there's any human listening to it.
Could be, Kev. You could be right.
Could be a Bigfoot with headphones.
Yeah.
But, you know.
Or a black-eyed kid. Yeah. So,
I enjoy these stories very much.
So thanks to the customers, Kev. You know, customers to our listeners who were astute and pointed it out. I don't know how many people bought one of these copies where it was cut off because a lot of books, audiobooks, go out the door. But
Yeah.
these two people mentioned to me about the first chapter dying off after a little shy of 4 minutes.
And speaking of reviews, Bill, check your reviews online for that Audible, just to make sure a bunch of people didn't give you bad reviews, because then you can get the ACS folks to fix that.
Yeah, well, I'll have to look at it. That's a good point. And, look, I would hope,
I know.
but there's always going to be some...
it's a technical glitch.
Yeah.
It happens.
Yeah, and we don't know why.
No, but the fact that you can just download all this stuff now and listen to it and put it on your electronic Kindle. I mean, yeah, we take it all for granted now, but not that long ago, you couldn't do any of that stuff.
Yeah, and Bill's pretty good, and I've reviewed these files ad nauseum, and, Bill on top of me, and, so we certainly didn't send an incomplete file. After I do all of my audios, I listen to the entire thing again.
Yeah.
So I have read and listened to these things, folks. I cannot tell you how many times. And hundreds and thousands of hours of listening and typing and everything else. So it's ridiculous. But anyways, Kev, what do we have in our Cryptids and News and Other Oddities segment?
Yes, we're going to talk about the vampire of Alwick Castle.
Alwick?
Alwick. Alnwick. You act like we don't know him.
Do I know him?
He's a relative.
Alwick Castle?
Maybe not.
Yeah.
Maybe not a relative.
I was going to say, no relative I know, bro.
Well, he only comes around at night.
Right. Is it Bro or Brolinski?
So Alwick is a village, and there's a large castle there to this day, and it's in the northeast corner of the UK.
Okay.
So south of Scotland, but still in the UK. Pretty close to the coast, but not on the coast.
Okay.
And what's really interesting about this vampire tale is it doesn't come about like after Bram Stoker's story about Dracula and stuff like that, where a lot of vampire tales are kind of inspired or brought on by Bram Stoker's famous and creep-filled novel about Dracula.
You really like that book, don't you?
I told you the story when I was reading it in Budapest, and I met the guy who I think was a vampire, who lived in Transylvania across the Danube River in Romania.
Nice.
You want to talk about a creep fest? That was real life.
Yeah, that was a real
I didn't have
life.
my headphones in. I was looking across the table at this creep fest. So anyway, this tale comes about by William of Newburgh, who was a historian in the UK in the 12th century.
Uh-huh.
And he chronicled how a former master, so the master of the house of medieval Alnwick Castle, would rise from his underground tomb and prowl the streets of the town at night, causing terror and disease.
Oh.
All right? So the story comes from a historian who wrote about it in the 12th century.
That is interesting,
Yep.
I mean, what do you think? 12th century, given who the individual was, storyteller or not?
No, I don't think so. So let me tell you about this.
Go ahead.
So he wrote about it in the 12th century, and in the 11th century, this vampire, we don't know his name, but he was a servant of the Lord de Vesci of Alnwick Castle.
Wow.
So at that time, there was a lord living there, and this gentleman was a servant of his.
Same castle 100 years earlier.
Same castle. And by the way, the castle, this was a couple of hundred years, only a couple of hundred years before a family by the name of Percy bought the castle. And to this day, the castle still remains in the Percy family. And the current owner is a gentleman, or I should say a duke, named Ralph Percy. And he is, in fact, the 12th Duke of Northumberland. All right? But the Percys had nothing to do with this.
Right, right.
But this guy, who is a servant, who shall remain nameless, had quite a reputation in town, apparently, as being a thoroughly nasty person.
Sounds like somebody I'd like to meet. I'm sorry, you know.
Oh, yeah, even before he became a
That's right.
vampire.
Hey, I heard you were thoroughly nasty. How about a pint?
Yeah, yeah. And, so he didn't treat people well and certainly didn't treat his wife too well either. And at one point, he became aware, or at least suspected, that his wife had been cheating on him.
Uh-oh.
Determined to catch her, he climbed onto the roof of their house there on the castle grounds to spy on her. Now, we don't know what happened, but he fell through the roof and crashed to the floor and near fatally injured himself, but he didn't die immediately.
Okay.
Okay. And as he lay there dying, he cursed his wife. Okay. And he must have taken, this storyteller says that it must have taken some time for him to die, because when they came to help him, they realized he was going to die. He was asked if he repented of all of his sins, and he refused to do so in no uncertain terms. Very nice person.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he died unlamented and unblessed.
Oh, yeah, boy.
And soon after that night, Bill, he was often seen wandering through Alwick at night, wafting with him an appalling stench of death.
Ugh.
Yeah. And the good people of the town were so frightened that they took to locking themselves in their houses as soon as darkness fell. Okay, so this guy was out there roaming around.
Kev, you can picture yourself in some of these old settings. Can you not, with no electricity?
Oh, yeah.
Some of the houses were probably like little hovels.
Yeah, smoky, little muddy street, with all the little fires going, burning peat or whatever they used to burn up there.
No great security.
Or no security at all.
Something could kick your door in and push open a window probably with not too much trouble.
Absolutely.
So there was real, fear.
100%.
Over a lot of things at that time,
Yeah, well, and people in that little village there, they started to come down with the plague at this time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and now that was always a threat throughout the Middle Ages, but they attributed it to this stench-ridden corpse that was walking around in their streets at night.
So now this guy, this servant, was 100 years before the fellow who the vampire was actually attributed to?
Oh, no. This is the vampire.
Oh, okay.
It's 100 years before the famous historian published the work about him.
I don't know why I missed that in my mind. I was listening.
And I don't know if it's full 100 years. It's 1 century to the next,
right.
But it could have been 10 years.
Right. So the historian was given the account.
He's given the account.
And I wonder what sparked him to give the account. Was he writing about other things at that time? Do we know?
He was a historian, so I'm sure he was writing about other things, and maybe he was chronicling the castle or something like that.
Or the region, the area.
Yeah,
goings on,
Absolutely.
And your typical historian, You might be in error about certain things, but I don't think the intention of any historian is to bring to the table nonsense.
No, I mean, they weren't looking for the greatest number of YouTube followers.
Yeah,
for example.
no, and who knows how.
Not looking for the most TikTok views.
Yeah, he's probably doing it as like a labor of love or just his due diligence.
Just his labor.
Yeah.
He got to live inside the walls if he did that.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Or you could live outside the walls and eat bugs.
Yeah.
So you mentioned fear, Bill.
Yeah.
So fear ran rampant throughout this town. And this is quite natural back then because most, if not all, of the folks were uneducated and basically simple people. And, there's people around them dying, and then they have this foul-smelling, corpse-like figure that's seen from time to time. So they're terrified.
Yeah.
And they go to the local priest, and on Palm Sunday, they gather together a party of some courageous folk from their church, and they went out to dig up this dead man's grave. Mm-hmm. He was not, they soon discovered, buried 6 feet under, although he was originally buried 6 feet under. But his body was almost at the surface of the land with just a light covering of soil over him.
And they just randomly went to dig him up.
They went to, well, not randomly. They went to the priest and told him about all this, and they said, we got to do something about this. This guy's walking around at night bringing us the plague.
No, in other words, there was no preparation time where somebody could have heard about them and pulled a
They wouldn't
scam.
move the body or anything. No,
right.
no,
They
no,
just
no,
went to
no.
the priest and they decided they were going to go dig him up.
Yep.
Kev, it also shows you how much superstition was still around then.
Oh, 100%.
People were uneducated. There was a lot of weird stuff going on, things being talked about. They were uneducated. They were illiterate. And there was still a lot of things that needed to be, quote, ironed out.
Well, look, even hundreds of years later, there in the same area in the UK, that's when they had the first witch trials, right?
Yep.
And, of course, folks, again, no witches were harmed in the making of this podcast.
Uh-huh.
We do recognize that you believe, at least, that there are some nice witches and some not so nice witches. I won't comment on that.
So you're saying you really don't believe what you're saying is what you're saying?
No, I'm not saying that at all.
All right.
I said no witches were harmed in this podcast.
Were any nice vampires harmed?
Yes.
Good.
Right. So let's get back to that vampire friend.
Yeah.
So he's found just below the surface of the soil, and the stench of the corrupted flesh was overwhelming.
Ugh.
And they said that the body was swollen to almost twice its size in life. But what was really weird was its face was pink rather than being white after being buried for so long.
Oh, that's creepy.
Well, get this, all right?
Yeah.
And if you have kids in the room, cover their ears. Some of the braver souls that were digging him up took their shovels and hacked at his body, cutting open its stomach. And out from the stomach and abdomen flowed gallons of fresh, hot blood. And they believed that was surely proof that he was indeed a blood-sucking vampire roaming the town in the evening after the sun went down.
Pink face, blood pouring out of his abdomen. What a
Shallow
creepy thing that
grave.
the body would be by the surface when they went out to exhume him.
Well, he had to cover himself up with some dirt again so that the sun wouldn't blister his skin,
Yeah.
being the good vampire that he is.
Yeah. I mean,
So then, Bill,
why not
the
just hide under a
townsfolk-
Coleman pup tent?
It's a good question. You should write the current historian.
Oh my God, these people.
So what did they do, those people, after hacking him up with a shovel? They took him outside of town and burned him completely to ashes so that nothing remained, thus bringing an end to the vampire of Alwick.
Oh, man. Well, listen, Kev, we have a lot of listeners over in the UK. We should invite them if they have any additional data on this vampire, or maybe you even live in that area. You know the castle.
100%. Castle of Alwick.
Yeah, give us...
Maybe you're one of the Percys and you live in the castle at Alwick.
That would be excellent.
That would be excellent squared.
Excellent squared. Well, Mr. and Mrs. Percy, if you're out there, contact us at BigfootTerrorInTheWoods.com, would you? And we'll have a little chat about the vampire of Alwick.
Yeah, that's it, Bill. So pretty creepy.
What Holmes said, there's a lot of things out in the moor.
Stay on the path.
Wow, that was creepy, Kev. Talk about Creep Fest.
Well, yes.
There is a lot of vampire-related tales going through the annals of histories. This is nothing new. If anything, it's old. And,
and still today.
Yeah.
Right? There's current tales.
Yeah.
Of vampires.
I mean,
not just the one about the guy I ran into.
Yeah, we were talking. You were talking a while ago about those two guys down in Louisiana. That were seen on the streets and had those women bound and gagged and were draining their blood and God.
Good thing the Rougarou got him.
Yeah, good thing the Rougarou got him. Yeah, we need a couple of good old boys come out of the woods and take care of people like that.
Couple of Rougarou come out. Yeah. Maybe a dog man.
Yeah. Woo. Well, that was excellent, man. And I have an account here from a fellow named Travis Blake, a resident of Texas. He shared with me the following encounter, which is what he and his father had run into in 1965. I should also mention that Travis, at the time of this transcription, ripe old age of 96.
Wow.
So I feel it necessary, Bill, to give you a little background on my father and I as I bring you into what happened to us that day in Washington near the Idaho border. My father was a wildcat oil man, simply an individual in Texas or anywhere else seeking to exploit unproven or high-risk oil and gas reserves. A lot of money is won and lost in this type of work, and my father was a winner. Now, I worked with and for him and eventually took over the operation when he had semi-retired. In 65, our operation's net worth was about $488 million, today's equivalent of perhaps close to $6 billion. Now, we as hunters had many opportunities to travel and hunt in exotic locations, including 3 safaris in Africa, one of which I will tell you about, after which you will understand why I have even mentioned it. On this safari, we were being bluff charged at one point by a bull elephant, a bull that was a little ticked off at the time of our being there. And my whole reason for mentioning this was the sound of his repeated roaring at close range. Most people will never experience such an attack or a sound in their lifetime, which shook my entire body at the time. By design, it was a very intimidating moment indeed, the volume and intensity of which is now indescribable. That was in 61. Now I'll take you to 65. Long before the proverbial Patterson-Gimlin film and all the other things we've learned about since then about Bigfoot. If you think that few people are living in that region of North America today, at that time there was next to nobody. Where we were heading, next to nobody where we were heading. But money can get you what you need, and we had plenty of it. We were on a week-long excursion on horseback, complete with a cook, 2 guides, and horses to carry all our gear and camp supplies that we would need for the hunt. My father was a risk taker, and as his son, I was always along for the ride, having gotten used to it over the years, even though I had a wife and 3 children. The encounter happened on day 1 of our entering the area. The tents were set in place. All the horses were tethered. A fire had been started, and it was late afternoon. As I recall, there were more than likely a few hours of daylight left when we decided to check our scopes and rifles for accuracy, which is a general practice when hunting, especially after a long horseback ride. Our guide, Lewis, had set some paper up at about 100 yards, as we were now sighting in our guns, having fired about a half dozen shots when the screaming started. There were several loud barks, as I would describe them, very deep sounding, that occurred about 3 to 5 seconds apart, if that. Everyone turned in response to hearing them and grabbed their guns. Lewis had said a couple of expletives, the other 2 fellows responding in kind, none of them seemingly knowing what they were hearing. These barks, let me turn this over here. These barks were loud and near to us, coming from dense trees, and made after the last rifle shot had been fired. It sounded like a dog of mammoth proportions mixed with a cough, barking. I know it sounds strange, but it was really indescribable. There was a slight slope to the woods next to us. Let us call it a low-lying hillside, with some shorter trees on the front edge and larger ones tiered up behind them, allowing us to see the tops of those some 50 to 100 feet away from where we stood, when 2 of them started to shake. We all felt the same way, I'm sure, at the time, perhaps my father and I more so, seeing the looks on the faces of the other men who came from this region and were well familiar with the surroundings. And that is when the scream erupted, and why I had mentioned the African bull elephant. The sound was like a scream and a roar all melded into one, and I could feel it resonating right through my body, almost painful to listen to. Lewis said, "Get ready." I remember thinking to myself, get ready? Get ready for what? All of us were standing with 3 rifles and 2 pistols, facing the trees in anticipation of what I now believe would be an attack of some kind. But by what? It was one solitary scream, lasting for about 15 seconds and no more, followed by some grunts in different tones that sounded like they were being made by 2 or more different animals, like the sound a big dog makes when they're warming up for a bark. I hope you can follow that description. Now, there was a slight thinning or break in the trees. And what the heck just happened here? Hold on.
Uh-oh.
Well, it looks like I left one paper on the side, but hold on here.
Bigfoot got it.
Yeah. Now,
Did you let those black-eyed children in your house?
yeah. Like I said, it was one solitary scream lasting for about 15 seconds and no more, followed by some grunts in different tones. Now, so he describes this slight thinning or break in the trees to our left-hand side going up the slope that I described to you, where we could see outbound a bit when this gigantic gorilla darts across it with were 3 or 4 bounds, not steps. They were like long jumper leaps, one in unison with the other, covering about 40 feet going into the trees and out of sight. Can you imagine this? When I said I could not believe what I was seeing, nobody could believe what we were seeing. Apparently a first for everyone, including the guides and the cook. Before we could even gather our thoughts, all of us kind of bitch slapped now. Some weird type of gibberish could be heard coming from the area of the tree shaking. And this, after what we had seen, exited the area. Lewis said, "Be careful, men, we could be surrounded." Now, I am thinking, what the hell have we gotten ourselves into here? Gorillas? Being surrounded? I didn't know what to think other than we were being threatened, or at least in the eyes of Lewis. There was only an hour or so left in the day until the sun set, and Lewis decided to break it down and head out of there, knowing it would be getting dark. We rode for about 3 hours through the twilight and into the dark, where we entered a clearing, stopped again for the night. We posted 2 guards through the night, switching on and off as the others slept until daylight, when daylight finally broke, and boy was I glad. Nothing else came of it, and no shots were fired, and that only because Lewis and his men had not fired. I was ready to shoot at the sound of the scream. One of the men during the night had mentioned Sasquatch, a term that my father and I did not know of. But when they spoke of it, it was undeniably what we had seen. Pretty bizarre, Kev, huh?
Very bizarre.
Gorilla, long jumping. I mean, here's another description of a Bigfoot like boogieing, okay, where they are stretching out and covering some ground at a rapid rate.
Well, they have that amazing strength, right? So it makes sense.
Yeah. And
they're huge.
I had that one account. I can't remember what I named it, and I don't even think we've done it. Eventually we'll get to everything, but there were these guys hunting. I want to say Midwest. And they were sitting on the edge of the woods, wearing ball caps, brightly colored, overlooking a field that had like a gully in the middle of the field. And my recollection is that they saw a doe come running out across the field, bolting, but the doe had to go down into the gully and climb up the other side. This was like a canyon. Let's just say it was 8 feet deep, had a curved line coming down around the bottom and then up the other side. So the doe could not clear this gully. A Bigfoot was chasing the doe. And these guys are sitting in the early morning hours waiting to pick off a deer out in the field. And they see this. But here's the coup de grace. The Bigfoot cleared the gully running. Immediately had the advantage over the doe that had to go down, across, and come back up. It just kept the boogie on and leapt right over the gully. Now, I remember this, that the guy said, we didn't see the end result, but they were sure this thing got what it was running after. Yeah. And here they are looking at this thing with the freaking hair flying out behind it, legs stretched out, flying across this field at freaking 35 miles an hour, whatever they run. and chasing this deer with intent. But that is nuts, man. Well, you think
Crazy.
You think it is too. At the time, until the nighttime, when one of the fellas had mentioned the term Sasquatch, nobody really, according to this, had really come clean about what they were looking at. Like he speaks as though everybody was shocked, including him and his father. But how about this guy Lewis? Get ready. Can you imagine? Tree shaking, noises, grunting, screaming. Get ready, man. And you're out here in the middle of nowhere. Get ready. Like he said, get ready for what? Jeez. Anyways, that's it, man.
That is pretty cool, Bill.
Yeah. It's it just gets you. You know, I was talking to a lady today, I won't get into it, from Abilene, Texas. She was recounting a Bigfoot experience that her young, at the time was a boy, her husband, had in Oregon, somewhere around the Portland area in the 60s. And it reminded me how people get in trouble. When she was giving me this report, I think her husband was 8 and his brother was 5. And they were out and away from the trailer they were living in the woods.
So she was telling a story that her husband relayed to her from when he was a little boy?
When he was a little boy, he had relayed this Bigfoot tale to her through the years. And she's a follower of our podcast.
Okay.
And he doesn't want nothing to do with her to sharing it, so she was sharing it in proxy of what she knew of what he had told her.
Sure.
And I said to her, when she said to me the little boys were out working on a tree fort, and they had gone 3 different days in a row pretty far from the trailer to work on their tree fort. Could you imagine it? 8 and 5? In the woods of Oregon. And but I said to her, you know, this is how people get in trouble. You know, we are just not thinking about where we are and what is around us. It's not necessarily just beautiful woods. You know, one of our listeners sent well, it was Phil, our buddy Phil. He sent me a breaking news thing the other day. They found the guy's head in the woods in Vermont. And I think the guy had been missing for like 10 or 14 years. And all of a sudden his head shows up in the woods in Vermont. You know, and we're saying like, how the freak did the guy's head get there? Where's the rest of him, you know? But, you know, there are bizarre goings-on out there. Rob from Chilliwack. I told you Rob ran into a bear in the woods, Kev. Did I tell you that?
Yeah.
And he sent me a little video he took of it on his phone before he got the Giddy app on and got out of there. You don't know what could be 6 feet away from you when you're marching around in the trees in the woods. I don't care if you're hiking in to get to a river to fly fish. I don't care if you're hiking with your husband, your girlfriend, by yourself, Vermont, New Hampshire, Montana, Oregon. It doesn't matter. There is stuff in the trees and in the bushes that can kill you, and one of those things is a Bigfoot. So I don't know. You know, I think people are really lax when it comes to safety. And as I say, dead men tell no tales. You go on the missing 411 agenda, and that's the end of you, and nobody knows what happened to you.
Absolutely.
You know, it's creepy, Kev.
Yeah.
It's just
I'm with
creepy.
you. I am with you.
Yeah. So, what do we have in our listener mail today?
We are going to the great state of Oregon.
Okay.
And we're going to talk to Ken. We're going to hear from Ken.
Okay.
And Ken says, Greetings, guys. Really love the show. I've been listening for years now, and it just keeps getting better. I especially love when my home state of Oregon is featured. By the way, Tillamook is not only famous for its creepy lighthouse, but also for its truly excellent cheese. And I can vouch for that, man. Tillamook cheddar is fantastic.
Really, I'd like to have a hunk right now.
Go get a hunk, man. They got it in the supermarket.
Tillamook cheddar cheese?
Tillamook cheddar cheese. Yeah, it's awesome.
I'm going to try it. I've been hooked on Cabot's 3-year aged white cheddar for a long time.
Yeah, that's good too. I think that's from Maine.
Yeah, 3 years though. It's got to be that aged stuff. Man, is that good.
All right. So Ken goes on to say, Kev, have you heard of the Oregon Vortex? It's a place in southwest Oregon that claims to have lots of strange things happening that defy scientific explanation. Anyway, I hope and pray that you're both well and for continued success with the show. Ken from Brownsville, Oregon.
There you go.
And Ken, I have heard of the Vortex, but not in a long time. But I remember traveling down there in Southwest Oregon and learning about the Vortex while we were camping down there as a family years ago. So I'm going to have to look into that again.
Yeah, check it out. See if we can dig up on the Vortex.
Yeah.
Yeah, is the Vortex that place or that area where everything seems kind of out of whack?
Well, that's generally what they mean, but I can't remember what that specific one in Oregon.
Yeah, well, check it out.
Well, I'm writing it down here and put it on the to investigate list.
Yeah, you know.
And Bill, you could remember a couple of weeks ago we talked about a sports team, a hockey team, that might be named after Bigfoot or Yeti. It was the new Utah expansion team. The fans were voting on a new name. And somebody wrote in here. They didn't say their name or where they're from, but they said, "Hi, guys. An old player that played on the Raleigh Ice Caps, which is the predecessor to the Carolina Hurricanes, Chick Poger, now owns a hockey team called the Minnesota Squatch.
Oh.
I wish I could attach a mascot picture. It's really cool. Check it out." Well, I did check it out, and it is really cool. It's kind of like a sketch of a really creepy Sasquatch face, Bill.
What's the name of the team, Kev?
The Minnesota Squatch.
Minnesota Squatch. You know, let me know if you could locate that shirt or jersey somewhere.
Oh, there you go.
I wouldn't mind having one for myself just for goofs and to wear, roughhousing around.
Right,
Minnesota Squatch. Most hockey jerseys are pretty, durable,
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
So if I wear that around, maybe I could wear that with a black suit jacket and people really think I lost my marbles.
There you go.
Barefoot, blue jeans, black tuxedo jacket, and Minnesota Squatch hockey jersey.
And then you can beg on the corner of Patchogue Mount Sinai Road with a sign that says, "Sasquatch won't kill you if you give me money."
Yeah, no, I wouldn't resort to begging. I'd just tell them, give me your wallet or else.
All right. All right. Well, thank you for writing in, whoever you are. I did check out the Squatch, and he's cool. We'll look for a jersey for my brother. Maybe I'll trade it for an autographed book sometime.
Yeah, and shout out to the fella that wrote in. If you know where I can get one of these jerseys, hit us up with an email at BigfootTerrorInTheWoods.com and let me know.
He's like, yeah, go to eBay.
Yeah, go to eBay, man.
Hey. All right. And our next one comes in from Rick T. from Ohio, not to be confused from our field reporter, Rick K. from Ohio.
Uh-huh.
All right.
Hey, Kev, who do you think this Fox Mulder character is?
Oh, we're going to get to Fox Mulder.
Okay.
And
I have my suspicions.
All right. And Rick T. writes in, "I love the podcast. I just want to comment on you guys talking about a Bigfoot team. This is another one. there is a minor league baseball team in South Dakota called the Spearfish Sasquatch. Just thought I'd let you guys know.
Yeah.
So thanks, Rick T, for writing in. I love all these sports teams, and I told you, Bill, that I've seen at hockey games somebody with a minor league hockey jersey on, like called the Florida Skunk Apes or Swamp Apes or whatever, and it's pretty cool. It's got a big swamp ape on it. All right, and our last email comes from your friend, Bill, Fox Mulder. And the subject is more gun than I think I'm going to need. I don't know if you saw this one. He said,
Well,
nope. I'd say this one's just about right. Say hello to my little friend, Bigfoot. And he has a clip on there of a full auto shotgun, which I've never seen before.
yeah, really nice.
It is pretty impressive. Say hello to my little friend.
Yeah, you give me a shotgun anytime. I want to send some friggin' lead down range.
It's a lot of lead that thing sent.
Yeah, boom, 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 boom. Oh, look, he fell down.
Yeah, so that's it this week. What do you think, Bill? You think you know who Fox Mulder is?
I got a pretty good idea who Fox. It's an alias for one of our
regulars.
Yeah, our regular friends.
Okay,
I'm pretty sure of that.
Well, I don't mean to always read Fox Mulder's stuff, but Fox Mulder's stuff is pretty good.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. Well,
this video was like, all right,
Fox Mulder.
all right. Well, that's it, Bill. That's it this week. Great podcast. And folks, thanks for those 5-star reviews. And if you did buy the latest copy of my brother's Audible book, I mean, yeah, get your refund, get a new download if you happen to got that defective first chapter.
Yeah, obviously it wasn't our intent to do that. And, Amazon and Audible, that whole gig, they're very good about standing behind everything. So I don't think you'll have any issue with that whatsoever. And by the way, folks, if you should find yourself walking around in the woods in the UK, Oregon, wherever you may find yourselves, you best remember one thing, my friends. Always carry more gun than you think you're going to need. Like a full auto shotgun. Sleep tight.